What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a Pillars of Eternity lore video about Hylea. Hylea is, of course, one of the gods of Eora. Now, a couple of quick things right off the bat. One, some tiny spoilers, mostly for the first game. All of Hylea's interactions in the second game aren't particularly story-related. Also, she is one of the gods we don't interact with much, especially in person, so there's not much video of her, so it's mostly going to be like pictures and stuff in the background. Feel free to just listen. So, with that out of the way, the goddess Hylea is the god of birds, the sky, childbirth, inspiration, culture, basically life, but not just being alive, the act of actually living. And to really drive that home, Hylea has a sort of informal clergy as opposed to the other gods. Hylea is worshipped by midwives and artists. Churches to Hylea are just beautiful aviaries. They are stained glass buildings, stuff like that. And you can actually find a journal in both of the games that I think sums it up very well. Hylea's domains, if you will, are what separate the kith from the monsters in the world. And all Hylea wants people to do is, as this book puts it, live every note of life's song. And unfortunately, even that proves too difficult for a great many people. So Hylea as a god basically just wants you to embrace life, being alive. Now that said, she is also the god of just straight up childbirth. But if someone is just slogging through every day, not trying to live in any way, like not trying to chase music or an art form, she's not really going to be happy with that person. Now, that said, her interactions in the games are actually fairly limited. In the first game, she is one of the gods you can actually talk to because you only speak to 4 out of the 11 of them in that game. But when you talk to her to hopefully get her favor to go to the end game of the first game, in order to get her favor, you have to help out with a problem at her shrine nearby, which is actually the quest for one of the 2 dragons in that game. Now, this being Hylea, you might want to ask yourself if Hylea actually wants you to kill that dragon. Because part of these quests and for this endgame and how you resolve them does kind of lead into what that god would actually want you to do. Now you can resolve it in any which way and the quest will still complete with that god's favor. But I think this particular quest really highlights that in particular because when you get to the top of Hylea's shrine, it turns out a dragon has taken roost there. Now you can just straight up slay this dragon, go back to Hylea and be like, there you go, problem solved. However, there are other options. You can convince it to leave, basically persuading that it's going to have to deal with people coming up here to try to kill the thing all the time. Or you can actually let it stay, but you have to go talk to Hylea about that. And I think that part in particular is really cool because when you think about it, a dragon is just a really big bird in a lot of ways. Now obviously they're different, but my point is from Hylea's perspective, the perspective of a god, that is a winged creature, and she has dominion over all birds. So you might want to stop and ask yourself if the god of literally birds and winged creatures, and also life, would really want you to kill this thing. And the answer is no, not really. You can actually just go convince Hylea to let it roost there from now on, which I thought was a neat ending to that quest. Now, as far as interactions in Pillars of Eternity 2, we only really see Hylea in the conversations with the gods that are sprinkled throughout the main story. And regardless of what you're doing, you don't really have a lot of interactions with her unless you made a pact with her in the first game, because she is one of the gods that wants all of the souls returned to their bodies. The souls from the Hollowborn Crisis, but we're not really getting into that. If you choose to make that pact with her and then break it, in the second game, she will send a huge flock of birds to shit all over your ship. And that's about the only noteworthy thing Hylea does in that particular game. So with that out of the way, guys, there is pretty much what we know about Hylea, the goddess of life, childbirth, inspiration, culture, and just straight up being alive. With that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I truly do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.